Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tips and Tricks for How to Look Good Naked and Why You Should Love Yourself, even if you don't. I'm Joe Tierney, and Amber Riley will be joining me in just a moment. So I'm solo. I do have my man behind the scenes, Chris. And so I think if anybody has any comments and you want anything what you would like to speak about tonight, I would like to speak about I'm going to ask Amber some questions about stress and inflammation and the impacts that they have on the body. She's certainly the nutrition and fitness guru, but I certainly have a little bit of expertise in that area myself, and I really want to get into that discussion and that topic. I will give you an update on myself and on Randy. We're both doing very well in regard to our water intake, our breathing exercises, and hopefully he hops on tonight and we get to have that conversation with him. But so we're both doing well in that regard. I think in the nutrition, it hasn't been as clear cut and as easy. I have certainly increased my protein, and that has been beneficial. But I think at the same time, I think I'd like a little bit more clarification from Amber in regard to carbs. I have a macros makeup, and I have a concept and an ideal of what I believe is the ideal macros makeup. I typically like to do 40-40-20, and I think that that's typically beneficial for most people. And here's Amber now, so that'd be great. Hi, Amber.
I'm so sorry, guys. I was wrapping up with a client.
All right, well, that's important too. I was just briefing the viewers on what it is that I'd like to discuss tonight, and I was giving them an update on myself and Randy. I was thinking a lot about. I'm sorry?
What's the update on Randy and you?
So we've both been doing very well, and he hasn't had a soda or an energy drink. And since our conversation, he's just been drinking water and coffee. So isn't that phenomenal?
Crap, that's amazing.
I know. So I'm very proud of him. He's actually doing better than I am in that regard. I'm for the most part, I've always, not always, but for the last several years, I primarily drink water. And so I was hoping to get up to a gallon. I'm not quite there yet. And it made me think about, but we're speaking about nutrition. Here's Justin. Hi, Justin. Welcome to the program. And I think Justin, I want to address some of Justin's questions tonight because he often speaks about stress. And I want to talk about the impact of stress on the body, because that is where Randy is struggling. He's undergoing, so he has some stress going on in his life. And I want to talk about how that impacts the body. And I've actually had a very stressful week. And I've noticed that, and I believe that I've read about it, and I believe that there is a correlation. I've had some inflammation, and I believe inflammation is often the root of many causes of disease.
It's the single one. It's the number one root of all diseases, actually. Whether that's cancer, it doesn't matter. It's all inflammation.
Right. So I have concerns about that. And I know that it's attributed to stress. I did have a few salty foods yesterday because I was trying to increase my protein a little bit yesterday. And the options that I had were probably very high in sodium, and I'm not often. So I think, that's a big link. I want to talk about that. Should we be monitoring our sodium, inflammation, and stress on the body? So that's my segue. And so what do you think? Well, I don't know where you want to start. Do you want to start about with the next step, or you want to talk about those items?
Well, let's cover the questions and everything that we have thus far.
Okay.
So when it comes to sodium, it is an important thing to watch. However, if you do not have a disease already that they have told you to watch your sodium intake because you're retaining water or whatever reason, we already have so many variables that when we start eating healthy that we're paying attention to, our grams of sugar, our protein, our fat. So I don't like to overload people. So it's kind of one of those things that is a case by case basis. If you have been advised by somebody in the medical field that you need to watch your sodium intake, then by all means, you're going to have to be more careful on your protein selection. But I just try not to overload people on trying to watch too many things, because then you get overwhelmed and you're like, forget it, I can't do this. It's too much.
I agree. And I think for myself, I don't have any issues that would limit my sodium, but I found it very interesting that when I did have a higher sodium day and I didn't track it, I just in retrospect, now that I feel a little bit, bloated. And in
I was
retrospect,
getting ready to ask you,
yeah,
do you feel the effects of it? Yeah.
I do. So I started thinking about what I ate yesterday and I realized that it was a higher sodium day just because of the choices. I had some things like Canadian bacon, which is low in calories but high in sodium. And I also had ham at lunch, which I typically wouldn't have. And those two things together, I think really kind of put me over.
That's actually very intelligent that you brought up those two things, because I mean, being a nutritionist, when I think of sodium, those are not the first things that I think of. I think of primarily your process, your canned goods that are automatically. That's what most people struggle with in their sodium. So you must eat pretty clean when it comes to sodium then, if those two things bothered you.
I typically do. I mean, I do have some salty snacks sometimes, but I don't have all of those things together. Like if my protein would typically be yogurt or chicken or fish or even, hamburger, I rarely would have ham. I just think it was a go-to thing. And I said, I'm going to try some ham roll-ups. And then I do have Canadian bacon fairly frequently. I do care for that. And I oftentimes utilize that as a snack. I'll put it in the microwave and cook it pretty well done. And it's almost like a chip. So,
really?
Yeah,
I've never thought to do that.
So there's, it's 6 slices or I think it's only 120 calories. So it's low in carbs and high in protein. So that's kind of my go-to in some regards when I'm in the mood for that, because it also has some sodium, so it's a little bit salty. But yeah, I think all of that together.
One thing you can do whenever you're going to consume, and this is not a foolproof, let me just put this out. This is not a foolproof method. It's not going to necessarily work every time, and it might not even work with your body type. So it's something, when it comes to health and fitness, guys, whenever we're saying eat this way, eat that way, just because we're telling you that this works with, let's say, 75% of the population, that does not mean that it's necessarily going to work for your body type. Unfortunately, both nutrition and exercise are very, what's the word I'm looking for? It needs to be customized. You can have a general idea of what typically works, but again, your body is going to be different. So, I've totally lost my train of thought of where I was going with that.
So we really have to, right, exactly. It has to be individualized and customized, and because it is so subjective. And that's when I was studying to be, a health, and I'm a certified health and wellness coach. And really one of the tenets, the first things that we learned, there are over 100 different dietary theories out there in the world. And it's not a one size fits all concept. You really have to tweak it and find what works best for you.
School is stressful, Justin's saying. When it comes to stress, so when we're trying to lose weight, guys, although we're looking at our sugars, our carbs, our proteins, and our fat, at the end of the day, it all comes down to how happy our hormones are. Okay. So our hormones, they guide and change everything. Cortisol, which is our stress hormone, it affects everything. So you can be doing everything right. You can be eating the right foods, exercising. Chances are, if your cortisol is high, you're probably not sleeping adequately, because a spike in cortisol just prevents you from having very good that REM sleep that really kind of assimilates our hormones. But I've had multiple clients that are your ideal clients. They do the workouts, they drink the water, they eat the right foods, and they're like, I don't know what to do. In fact, when I was writing my ebook, I gave an example at a client that actually come to me and said, should I incorporate 2 a days, like 2 workouts a day? I've never had a client come to me and say, should I work? I don't work out twice a day very often. It's very rare. And I'm like, whoa, he's like, I could do it between this before I start my second job. And I'm like, whoa. Before you start your second job at 11 p.m.? Like,
oh my God.
We need to restructure your day. And so all we did was changed up his hourly schedule to where he got in bed. And I'm not saying he was getting 8 hours of sleep, but we just gave him 6 hours of sleep. And within a matter, I think 7 days, it's like the pounds just started dropping. Now, they started dropping because he was already doing all of the things. and had been for a while. So his body kind of had that like compounded effect. It just couldn't release the weight because of the spike in cortisol and the lack of sleep.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And I think, that's something that I've never needed. I haven't never needed a great deal of sleep. I typically can function pretty well in 6 hours. I wouldn't say 5 anymore, but but I do notice that I used to work out pretty seriously, like 2 to 3 times a day, but in short stints. I would do a waist strength training, then I'd throw in a couple spin classes. But I did notice that I would. When I was really overworked, it would be a taxing on my body for sure.
Well, now a lot of people come to me and they're like, I sleep fine with 5 hours. I was just having this conversation 2 days ago with my best friend. She's like, I got 5 hours of sleep, Amber, and I was on fire. Like I was so mentally clear. And I'm like, I get that. And that's probably a progress from what you have been getting. But what people don't realize is that 68% of the US population is considered sleep deprived. And it's not sleep deprived because of a couple weeks. It's sleep deprived because of a couple years, if not decades, that they have gone on 4 hours of sleep or 3 hours here, 4 hours there. So if you all can do the research, if you look it up, you are actually like an alcoholic, like a drunk alcoholic, if you're driving while you're sleep deprived. So what happens, in fact, my mom is living with a person that is a prime example. Now, don't get me wrong. She has other health issues as far as she's overweight, she's got diabetes. But what they're figuring out is that because she has been sleep deprived for roughly about 12 years, she now has formed sleep apnea and has to wear that mask. So the effects of lack of sleep is it totally balances. Sleep is what assimilates all of our hormones. So we are biomechanic, we are biofeedback machines. Okay. We are no different than that cell phone that you use every day. Okay, we're just a little bit more sophisticated. And what do we do every night to our cell phone? We plug it in. We plug it in. Our way of being recharged is going to sleep.
I think it's very interesting you bring up this sleep apnea, and I know somebody very well who has sleep apnea, and of course, it reminds me of the machine is only as good. It only works if you use it. So oftentimes,
and she doesn't. So it's not
the same with him. He oftentimes doesn't use it, and he sees the effects when he has it on and it's on point. So I think that really everything is about discipline, making a commitment to yourself.
Well, and let me just preface this with, guys, it's not a comfortable machine to sleep in. I mean, it is cumbersome, it is uncomfortable, especially if you already don't sleep good. But that's why I'm such a big component or proponent of sleep, because I would rather get to you before we get to that point. Okay. Great. Because once you get there, it's almost like there's no going back. I have personally never heard of anybody that has been diagnosed with sleep apnea that then does X, Y, and Z and doesn't have to wear the mask anymore. I have never heard of it. I'm not saying that there isn't out there. I just personally haven't heard of it. So sleep is one of those things that, although it's actually the 7th step in our 7 steps, it's crucial. But there are other ways that you can,
I'll take it. I'll take care of those comments.
I'm sorry about my dogs. There are other ways to help with your cortisol. So, like if it's during the day, let's say you're at work. I don't know if Randy's stresses is at work or if it's at home. But if you're at your work, there are quick little breathing exercises that you can do that take maybe 5 or 10 seconds. One of them is if you take 2 quick breaths in your nose and then 1 longer breath out your mouth. It just like, it sounds crazy. You're going to feel retarded when you're doing it. You're going to think everybody's looking at you. But I promise you, do that like 3 to 5 cycles and you will definitely see a difference in just your whole demeanor come down. Now, I would recommend Joe Dispenza is probably one of the best when it comes to quick little breathing hacks. YouTube Joe Dispenza, he's got great breathing exercises, great meditations. And none of these have to be long, extended, 20, 40 minute meditations. They can be as simple as 2 to 3 minutes. And sometimes that's all you've got.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that particularly for the friend that I have and who I'm very close to, I mean, so many areas of his life, I believe, are impacted by his lack of sleep. He's out driving around in the middle of the night, and he has a poor diet, and I think that his diet is improving, but I think that when you're so tired, and he oftentimes is, and he gets little bits and pieces and regiments of sleep, nothing concrete. I think it's pretty pervasive in his life, and I've seen it with my mother-in-law too. She has the sleep apnea as well, and I agree. I mean, I know we're going to talk about it in step 7, but it's really important to bring up now. I want to bring up Amy's comment. Amy is a young preteen, and she's asking, and this is particularly, I think, troubling for younger women. So she's saying, how do you deal with having a period? And that's tough. That's stressful. That's a physical aspects. And you also have cravings during that time and cramping. So I think you just kind of have to be on point and just try to manage your symptoms the best that you can, with self-awareness and use the strategies that work for you. I mean, there are supplements that help. There are pain relief medications. And what do you think? That's certainly...
I'm going to be real honest with you guys. Full disclosure, that is something that I struggle with quite a bit myself. For at least 3 days, I'm in a significant amount of pain. Now, I do have a colleague who I need to follow up with. She actually trains Olympic athletes, and she said that she also used to have this problem, and it's something that she's been able to deal with. She's got a program or a process. So you actually know her, Joe. What's her name? Drawing a blank. That she's the one that was in our group that did all of the championships.
Clara?
Yeah, Clara.
Yeah.
So that's somebody I need to follow up with, because I am just as curious. I will tell you that what I try to do that is sometimes effective, sometimes not. I do try to increase my water. So although I drink roughly 100 ounces, up to a gallon, I try to increase that in the days preceding it. But what I also don't do is, when you have those cravings, I don't beat myself up for it when I give in to them, because we don't have 100% mental clarity then. So there's no point in judging ourselves and, thinking down on ourselves just because we give in to something 1 or 2 days. It's not going to wreck your entire weight loss efforts. It's kind of like being pregnant. It's just something that our bodies go through. We crave weird things. So obviously you want to try your best not to give into those cravings and to continue to eat as healthy. But sleep is probably the biggest thing that I have found that helps me, because when I'm in pain and I try not to take pain medication, I just want to sleep. I don't want to feel the pain. My head hurts. I'm cramping. So I try to catch up on my sleep. And that's really been one of the best things. Now, I don't feel like I'm a case study to follow, because I feel like it should be somebody that doesn't experience 3 days of very large discomfort. But Amy, I will get with Clara, my colleague, and I will see what her protocol is, and I'll see what I can do for you.
I found, and I don't know if you'll agree, when I was a younger woman, preteen and teenager, like Amy was, it was a much more physical experience for me. And as I aged and got into my 20s and 30s and 40s, it became much more physical, much more psychological. I had, PMS more pronounced than I did when I was younger. So I think it transitions, and I think as we age and develop and grow, it's probably like a spectrum, like so many other things.
I never thought about that, but Joe, that's actually I have never ever thought about that, but you're right. I was doubled over cramps, not going to school for 3 days when I had in fact, my periods then lasted a lot longer.
That's how I was as well.
I did not experience the mental stuff that I feel like. I did not realize that. That is amazing. You're a genius.
Well, thank you. I'll take that compliment. But I think that that's something to be mindful of, Amy, that you'll have to reevaluate your strategies as you go through life and get older. You're probably just in the beginning stages of that. I believe Amy is 11 or 12. So she's just starting out on her journey.
Ooh.
So if you need our guidance or help, we also encourage you to speak to your mother or your parents. But we're certainly always open to questions as well, Amy. And Amy is actually, Amber, Justin's sister.
Oh, okay.
So Justin and Amy are our biggest fans. So thank you,
Awesome.
you two. So I wanted to talk about something else. So I was thinking about the inflammation, and this isn't something that I routinely do, but well, actually, I never do it and I don't plan to. But what do you think about when people try to utilize detoxes? I mean, I don't see much value to most of those. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Okay, so that's interesting that you say that because our step today is actually cleanse, detox, and declutter.
Really? Okay.
It is that is step number 5.
We're intuitive. Well, that's why we're such a good pair. It's like telepathic.
So yes, detoxes are incredible. First, the
Okay.
reason why it's step number 5 or 6 instead, I'm sorry, 5 instead of one of the very beginning steps, because a lot of people like to go to this immediately. Let's just clean out all the junk in our body. Is because if we aren't putting in all of the good stuff, the water, the breathing, the right nutrition, when we try to take things away, our bodies are going to go in shock. Like it's just going to be the worst experience in the world. You can do a detox that is fairly pleasant if you're already giving your body what it needs anyways, to where it doesn't feel so shocked and overloaded. However, having said that, you have got to be super careful when it comes to detox, because in essence it's the cleansing of your body, but we want to do it with the most healthy products that there is. I don't have any ingredients per se that the detox that I use is actually by the supplement company that I give to my clients called Viseo. Let me give me 1 second. Let me see if I can get the ingredients off of it and see if it's anything that I can share.
Okay, great. Yeah. And in the meantime, I'll take a look at some of these questions. So Amy's saying, let's see. Yes, sometimes girls have bad periods, and men and boys don't know how to experience them. That's true. Men and boys don't, excuse me, don't feel our pain, but they certainly struggle with their own challenges during adolescence as well, and growing up in life. So I think that for me, detox. Well, I'll hear what you have to say about it. I'm curious to see
Go
what the
ahead.
ingredients
Go
are.
ahead while I'm researching this.
Well, I was thinking about it. Is it fruit juices? I mean, fruit juice, and is it a liquid detox in entirety, or are there substances?
Most detoxes are liquid. I'm very hestant on liquid detoxes because they're generally going to have a whole lot of chemicals in there that are not natural. The detox that I use by Viseo is a pill. It's actually a pill, because we're not trying to bleach our systems out. That's the visual that I get when people say they're doing a liquid detox, is like, are you bleaching your system? I know it's not bleach, but that's often what people feel like that it's burning their insides to get all of this stuff out. Sometimes they experience, diarrhea and just an unpleasantness at that. So I don't typically do a whole lot of detoxes. Generally, not because I don't find them valuable, I do, but I just would prefer to not put the bad stuff in so that I don't have to utilize that kind of stuff. I'm looking it up right now. Hold on 1 second.
So I'm curious. I've actually never heard of a detox that's a pill. How often do you take it? Once a day? Mm-hmm. And then what are your dietary? Do you have dietary restrictions?
I mean, you want to stay away from your fruit juices. First of all, fruit juices are never good, guys. Never good. And if it's in a detox, it's definitely not good. Fruit juices are not fruit. They may have 3% fruit in it. I don't care if it says no artificial sweetener, 100% fruit juice. It's not. It's not. If it's sitting on a shelf, it is not fruit juice. Okay. It's just impossible. Now, if you're going to make your own with, acidic fruits like oranges and stuff like that, then by all means, but I don't really know what the recipe would be for those. So the ingredients. Hold on, I'm finding it. So it's got a enzyme in it. It's got kelp, apple pectin powder, psyllium seed, Coradium sativa, dandelion, which dandelion is actually a really good detox. Like you can make, just taking fresh dandelions, you can make dandelion tea. I've heard is very tasteful. I've never tried it myself, but
I actually have the dandelion powder that I throw into my protein shake sometimes.
I think you're the one that told me about the dandelion. I
don't know if I did because I haven't used it in a while, but I do have it in the pantry, and it's actually supposed to be very good for inflammation. And it tastes exactly how you would imagine a dandelion would taste because you can smell it. Smells like dandelion.
I don't really know what a dandelion tastes like.
I didn't either. So, but I think the smell when you taste it, you don't, whatever you imagine, I think it correlates just because of the smell. So it tastes fine. It just, especially when you mix it in with something. Or I haven't made it into a tea, but I bet you it would be a very good tea.
So by putting it in your protein drink, then did you not really taste it that much?
You can definitely taste it. It overpowers some things, but it's not as overwhelming as I think it would be otherwise.
The other thing this has in it, the reason why I'm such a big fan of it is Viseo has a liposomal patent process. So what that means is, so we all have this brain that we have is floating around what's called a blood-brain barrier. So it prevents things from crossing that blood-brain barrier. It's a defense mechanism. So oftentimes when we're taking supplements, they're actually needing to get to our brain, but what we're really just doing is we're peeing them out because they're not making it there. So in order for anything to get to the brain, it has to be wrapped in fat. Okay. So the liposomal process takes everything that is required for the brain and wraps it in several layers of fat because you're going to lose a couple of layers in the digestion process, but it'll still have enough layers to where it'll pass the blood-brain barrier. In fact, Pfizer and Moderna actually had to contact Viseo to use their liposomal process for the vaccine that they're using.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So I'm just very, when it comes to supplements and it's something that is what can be somewhat chemical as a detox, I'm very careful about what I put in my body. Just very careful. So I'm not saying there's not other great detoxes out there, guys. I just would be leery, and I would be more than happy to research anything that you're wanting to use. If you DM me, I'd be happy to look into it for you and see if that's, a decent product.
So how do you spell it, Amber? I'll put it in the comments in case anybody, and I'm just going to say that we're not necessarily recommending it. It's just something that Amber uses for her own personal.
It's called V-Tox, TOX. And it's by Viseo, which is VASAYO.
With a V or a B?
V as in Victor.
Okay. VASS.
No, VASAYO.
Okay.
That's the name of the product or the line. And then the detox is actually V as in Victor -TOX.
Okay. So I might give it a shot. And then what happens? You utilize this for detox, and how long do you have to do it?
Well, that depends on what you're doing it for. If you're just doing it for a simple weight loss, it might be a month or two. If you're doing it for other issues, like other health related issues, I will tell you guys that when it comes to detox, I don't really feel like that I'm an expert in it. And I have a health coach, believe it or not. I know that I'm a nutritionist, personal trainer, it doesn't matter. There's always somebody that knows more than you. You know what I'm saying? I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room. So when it comes to stuff like this, if you come with me at questions, I will always ask my health coach for her opinion. It is amazing. This woman who I met on Clubhouse with that beautiful app that is, she's actually not a nurse. She's not a doctor. She's not a personal trainer. She's not even a nutritionist, but her knowledge is second to no other medical professional that I have ever met in my life. No other professional.
And that's Clara?
No, not Clara. No.
Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. So, Justin, I see your topics on the side, but those aren't things that we're probably going to be talking about tonight. We don't typically talk about politics on Coast to Coast. That's something that we can talk personally. And I think some of those other topics, the bullying and those types of topics, we don't routinely speak about those, but I don't want to. I want to encourage you to reach out to a trusted adult if you're struggling in those areas, and the same with your sister as well. So those aren't something that we're going to address tonight, but I do see them, and I want to recognize them.
I also want to, this step that we're talking about, the cleanse, detox, declutter. So it's not just necessarily detoxing what we're putting in our bodies, but it's detoxing our environments. It's detoxing our relationships. So about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, I did a detox of my relationships, and I actually terminated 3 friendships that had been very lengthy friendships. I thought about it for months, as far as, these people have been there in a time in my life that I was not in a good place, and they continue to show up for me. But it was one of those situations where one of them, you get that phone call and you look down at the phone, you're like, oh, I don't want to answer this. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was happening way more times than not. But like I said, he was there for me during a very low point in my life. So I kind of felt obligated to him. But it was the most miraculous thing, because the universe works very magically. It will not bring other people that you need into your life until you remove the toxic people. So I terminated those 3 friendships, and I met a whole family of people that have done nothing but support me and lift me up and help me. And I don't know, honestly, if I would have met those people if I would have maintained those other friendships. Now, the other 2 were just kind of multiple occasions that they weren't there for me when I'm always there for them. And, you know what I'm saying? In my friendships, typically, not that this is probably subject matter, but I'm more of the giver. I'm not the taker. I don't do it. But when I do, in those rare occasions, need you, I do expect you to be there. You know what I'm saying? Without fail, I expect you, because it might only happen once every 3 years. So by golly, I do expect you to be there. So if you fail me on more than one occasion, then it might be time. I'm not saying that I'm just this harsh person that, God forbid, you don't do one thing for me, but it's just very rare that I ask those things of my friends. So it's that. And then also your outer environment. So your outer environment is a reflection of your inner world. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So you cannot be, simply empathic and all this feeling gratitude and love if you're in nothing but chaos and clutter. So I have always been a neat freak, but I've gone through periods of time where I've lived with people that are not so neat and orderly. And I will tell you that it causes me so much emotional drama. It feels like so much, it expends so much of my energy when things are not in their nice, neat, orderly things. So we're not just detoxing what we put in our body, although that's great, and you need to do that. You're detoxing your environment, your relationships, and everything that is not healthy and compatible to the life that you want to live, to your better self.
So I resonate with both of those topics. I mean, very similarly, my trajectory, and I think that we both came into that same community at the same time. And it really was because I had a relationship became fractured over something that I considered to be significant at the time. And so we had a break in a significant friendship in my life for several months. So I took up podcasting, and I reached out to the Forbes community, and really exactly that. And then I became involved and engrossed in this Coast to Coast family. So exactly that. I would not have met those people if I hadn't taken a step back from that friendship. And it wasn't, it wasn't a gentle step. I mean, we had some drama surrounding it, and unfortunately, we've come back around, and we were able to. It's a different relationship now. It's certainly a different relationship. But we were able to mend it, and I think we're at a different, certainly not as. we're more distant. I will say that. I don't know another term to say it, but we had to really reevaluate that relationship. And we didn't do it consciously. We just took the break, and then other people came into my life, and it just sort of melded and formed its own new identity. So I think that when you take a step back from relationships, it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be severed. They may come back around into your life in just a different form, and perhaps the form they were meant to be.
You know, the first relationship that I terminated, that was the one where I looked down at my phone and I'm like, oh God, I don't want to answer that. And when I approached him, I didn't approach it as we're not going to be friends anymore. I approached it as this is how I feel. Can you respect how I feel? And when he responded with just such lack of compassion or lack of just trying to see it my way, that's when I kind of knew, okay, this is, Tyler Perry has a episode where he talks about relationships are kind of like a tree, and most people in our lives are really just leaves. They're really just there for a season. We just try to make them more than that. And then you've got your branches. Your branches are there for you a little bit longer, but you got to be careful about those because when you step out on them, they break. Mm-hmm. All you really need in life is your 2 to 3 root friends, just those 2 to 3 individuals that are there for you, thick or thin, no matter what, no judgment, no, what I'm saying, doesn't matter if you're dead and gray and, what I'm saying, they're there for you no matter what. So I actually wrote him a message and I stole Tyler Perry's line. I'm like, I believe that, relationships are kind of like leaves on a tree, and I believe ours has come to an end. Our season has come to an end. And he just responded with complete hate and disrespect. And so I knew that one. But when you mentioned that you had repaired my phone that just rang, that was one of those relationships that I terminated. And it's just been in the last week and a half that she reached out to me and apologized. And, we had that conversation. Now, will we ever be like what you were saying, those best buds? I don't know. Maybe we'll be better. I don't know. Maybe we needed that break and we needed to be able to come and see each other's own opinion. Maybe we'll be a better friendship. I don't know. But it just was necessary. And I agree with you. It's not always the end of the road, but you've got to do what you feel is best in your heart and what is making you your higher self.
And really that individual, he would have in the past, I would have always been the person to do the reach out. And I was adamant because I felt as if, anyway, I was adamant and it went contrary to what I've ever done in the past. I was not the person to reach out, and that person did reach out to me. And I think that it meant a lot to me and that's really what allowed the relationship to heal in many regards, because typically in the past, I would have been the one, because I'm very similar to you, I would have been the one to be the giver and be the forgiving one. And really, I just felt I went through a catharsis really through the new people that I came into my life. And I realized, I think it's also, it's a measure of when you start to realize your worth.
Oh, you just nailed it. That is actually what it all came down to for me. So being a part of the community that we were a part of, and I'm not saying you need to be a part of that community, whatever community is for you, but what the major lesson that I got out of is I finally, and maybe for the first time tomorrow's my birthday. So 44.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, I'll be 45 tomorrow, but for the first time in 44 years, I finally realized my value. I realized what I bring to the table. Not that I didn't realize my faults, because that's important too. But I finally, and for many years as a coach, I had that, which I'm sure is very common with a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs, where when you give your price to somebody, you're like, oh, are they going to think that's too expensive? But for the first time, I was like, no, this is absolutely my price. No, I'm not going cheaper, because I know what I can give you. I know what I can do for you if you work with me. So that community did that. But it wasn't just the coach that we had. It was genuinely every member of the community really added to it. It wasn't just the coach.
I agree. I think more so, I think now in retrospect, I think it was the community almost more than the coach, because I think the community is going to be a part of our lives much longer than the coach will be.
Absolutely. Well, right. That's proved true.
Yeah. So I think that, but it was meant to be that way. I mean, coaches.
And she had an incredible ability of attracting heart-centered, entrepreneurs. So, she definitely was the pulpit of it in the beginning, but if I'm looking back in all honesty, although, our weekly sessions with her were amazing, the coaching she gave us was amazing, but the day-to-day sessions that I had with each individual member, that's what got me to be able to present each week, was those meetings with those individuals. So wherever you can find your community of people that are like-minded, they share the same passions of you, they support you, they're non-judgmental, you know what I'm saying? They're willing to be there with you with mutual respect. Reach out to them. I, for many, many years, was raised to be Miss Independent. And what will the neighbors think? Those were the two guiding principles in my family. Be independent, never depend on a man, to a fault, actually. And what would the neighbors think? And so for a long time, I felt like I had to do it alone. Not that I didn't have coaches or mentors, and I had friends, but I don't think that I was really enjoying the journey with them because I wasn't being vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? Because I was always worried of, will they judge me? So it's only been, and maybe this is just something that every person goes through. Maybe you have to go through those years in order to get to the authenticity. That was just my story. But I feel like now life has just a new meaning. And it's not that I don't want to, appear to have all of the things together, but I'm also willing to, okay, so I'll tell you honestly, I had a diet soda a week ago. I think my body went in shock, but I am not going to lie. It tasted really good. Not going to lie. Like, hadn't had one in years. And you tend to do things like the people you hang out with. So I hung out with my very first boyfriend that I had when I was 14 years old. And he's like a Diet Mountain Dew junkie. And it was nothing for me to throw down 2 Diet Mountain Dews. And I'm like, oh my God, did I seriously just drink those that quick? Like, without hesitation, like no seconds. I even read the label and I'm like, Jeremy, did you know this has got aspartame in it? He's like, nope, I don't want to know that.
That's
but
funny.
I kept drinking it. So I don't have to have it all together. And I don't expect my clients to have it all together. That's why I said it's okay to cheat. It's, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to wreck, as long as it's a cheat meal or even a cheat day, you're not going to totally wreck your habit. There's a whole thing with the feast and famine type thing. So that's my
funny.
story. Sorry for going long-winded, guys.
No, so that's funny because I didn't have a whole soda, but I was choking in the car today and I had a sip of my son's regular soda. I haven't had a regular soda and I don't even drink soda at all anymore, but to have a regular one is like almost unheard of.
Yeah, now that I can't do because it's just too sweet. It's not that
it's too sweet. You're right.
Sweet.
But I had no other options. That's the only thing that was in the car. And so I'm like, I'm going to have to take a sip.
I'll tell you another thing I did. Sweet. So I'm at my mom's house, and when I get hungry, this is why I eat like every 2 to 3 hours, because when I get to that point where I'm really hungry, I will eat whatever is in front of my face until I can get my food fixed. So I'm fixing food, and there's caramel popcorn, which is, processed to no get out. And I took a bite of it, and because I'm not used to processed sugar, it actually tasted like crap. Like I am digging it out of my teeth because it tasted so bad. Now, the Diet Mountain Dew did not taste bad, I'm not going to lie. But that caramel popcorn, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize that just when you change the way you eat for an extended period of time, your taste buds genuinely do change. So those vegetables that you don't like right now, guys, I promise you, if you continue to eat them or continue to not eat the other stuff, you actually will start to crave the good stuff. You really will.
I agree. And I think as well, that reminds me of something. And I do want to go back to the cluttering around the house because I do want to say something about that. But I think when we're speaking about when you're trying to detox from sugar, in just a couple of days, you'll stop craving it. It's going to be a rough couple of days, but that's exactly what happens. Your body adjusts itself fairly quickly.
It is about a 72-hour process. You're right. But now keep in mind that if you have another dose of sugar, sugar is the number one drug that it's the number one overused drug over heroin, over opiate, you name it. It's the number, because it's so easily accessible. So if you partake in a sugar substance, you're starting that process all over. So you're starting back over from day one. But you're right. If you can make it through that 72 hours, I promise you, you will feel like a new person and you won't crave that stuff anymore. You really won't.
You won't. So then I want to speak. You spoke about the decluttering your home. I've done a few live Zooms on decluttering, and I have a little bit of a mini challenge that I revolve around that, and I've done it a few times myself because I understand the value of that. But really, since I started all of these outside endeavors, my time is so limited, and my house has much more clutter than I typically like. I'm usually very well organized, and I crave organization, so it weighs on my mind. I come in, and even behind me, if I take the screen down to my little studio, behind there, I have papers piled up. But I think I'm weighing it against. Right now, I'm dedicated to building an empire and building my practice. So I try not to let it weigh on me too heavily, because I know it's not for lack of wanting, it's lack for prioritization in my life right now. So I have a priority, I have a goal, and I have a dream. And I think that, it's hard sometimes to find the balance, and sometimes you have to let something go to come through to your greater good.
Now, do you find that it drains your mental energy and stamina when you are looking at clutter?
It does. So that's why I put the screen up. I close my eyes as I walk by it. So, and I will do little projects, and I know there are things that, for instance, I cleaned the linen closet and got rid of all, my kids are teenagers now, but they still have like the Toy Story blanket. So I'll do little projects, and that helps me get to my goal. But there's so many, I have a lot of papers I want to go through, because we're taking so many courses, and we're bringing so much information into our lives, that I like to keep it handy. But I think that is really
it's funny you say that, because I don't have the time either to dedicate several hours, or it's several days sometimes, depending on how you let your clutter get up. So what I have found myself doing, and don't get me wrong, I'm not I'm if anything, I'm very OCD anal. Like, everything has a place. So I'm just one of those people. So I don't have a lot of clutter. But what I do is I have like drawers in my bathroom that kind of, although I know exactly what's in there, like there's only these items, it's kind of just thrown in there. So like when I go to clean my house, I'll take a drawer or two and clean that out additionally. So I'm only adding maybe 10 or 15 minutes extra to my cleaning routine, as opposed to a couple of hours. So it's manageable. It's all in, just breaking it down.
Agreed. So, and I totally see the value of it, because, it does weigh on me. And I think that, and I have the same 24 hours that everybody else does. So that's why I only sleep 5 hours. I have all this clutter I'm thinking about.
Now, there is one thing though, that like, I cannot cook if there is a mess in the kitchen. Like, the counters have to be clean. Everything has to be put. I just cannot cook. I will spend 5 minutes cleaning up the kitchen before I get out any food. That's just a crazy personal quirk of mine. I don't know.
I agree with that, but luckily I do have one of my sons is assigned to kitchen duty. So that is one area I don't have to worry about.
That's what the use of kids are.
So I tell him that every day by 5 p.m. he has to have the kitchen clean so that I can cook. Because I'm in a rush to get onto his show, and sometimes I'm not even home by 5. But that's the rule, and that is something of value. And I think that he's very responsible about it. I think that's too, when you have a routine. And I would think I was a fairly lenient mother, and I kind of pampered them until they became about 13, 14, and now they all have responsibilities, and it's really, I think, a benefit to them, and it's a huge benefit to me to have I don't have to worry about the kitchen. And that is the biggest struggle. So I couldn't walk by that, and so now
I don't remember having a lot of chores necessarily growing up, but I grew up with a mother that was probably worse than I was. When I say OCD anal, when it comes to, like, you walked in, you smell bleach. Like, it was just a clean house, and you had to put everything away. Now, ironically, she is the exact opposite now. The exact opposite. Like, going in her house just drains me, because we can't throw anything away. Like, it doesn't matter if it's garbage. We just put it on the counter. Like, I don't know if you get to a certain age and you just don't care anymore, or I don't know, but but I believe that I am OCD because I was raised to be in this, very clean, neat, organized environment. And I don't know what's happened to her now. I really don't.
So we're not really delving into this topic, but I feel compelled to bring up Justin's comment, and because I want to correct him on this. So Justin is saying that Joe is smart, but men do make more money than women and pay more than women in the relationship and do more. So I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to disagree with you wholeheartedly, Justin. I don't think that in many instances men don't always make more than women do, but I don't even think that it matters. The profits and the collaboration and relationship doesn't depend on the dollar sign, and certainly I disagree that that they pay more and do more in a relationship than women do. I think that's an antiquated ideal and
very antiquated, stereotypical of the old days. I believe there was a time then, yeah, because there's also a time that women didn't work. Women's job was to stay home. But I can tell you that I haven't done the research, but I'd be willing to say that probably 40% of the population are stay-at-home dads now instead of stay-at-home moms. So it's not an uncommon thing to have men in the carpool lane, and you know what I'm saying, or what are they called when you volunteer in a room? You're I don't know, but there's a terminology for it. But you see men.
Oh, like the class mom, the classroom mother.
And I can tell you, my sister has always been the breadwinner in the family. And I think you see that more and more. So I agree, Justin, there was a time when that was the case. Now, give more in a relationship. Maybe I'm just being a little, maybe because I'm a woman, but I still believe that because of how we are biologically made, we are much more in tune with our emotions. We are more empathetic generally. Now, this is a broad generalization. I'm sure there are outliers out there, but I do believe that just by our very nature of being cared, like the motherly role, I feel that we give more emotionally to a relationship.
And I want to speak to that actually, because that's part of neurolinguistic programming, and it's also one of the tenets of that is that you need two things. One, that, well, I'll just speak to one, that you need to respect other people's model of the world, and that brings into a point into love language. So for women, oftentimes our love language is to express ourselves emotionally, but for men, their love language may be changing the oil in your car or filling it up with gas.
Service, yeah.
So I think that we're just there's two different types of giving. So I think that if you're in a relationship, and we'll speak to both Justin and Amy are young people coming into the world, and they'll probably be coming into Justin's actually in his first relationship, that you really, I don't know. And this is generalities. There are certainly women who can change the oil in a car and emotionally intelligent men. But I think for the most part, I think there's a broad spectrum across any relationship, and there are certainly male-dominated characteristic traits and female-dominating characteristic traits. And I just think there's two different types of love, and people have different capacities and capabilities for it.
And Justin also mentioned that women are more emotional than men. I believe again, this is a generalization because you do find very emotional men out there, and you also find women that are not well with showing their emotions. But I believe if you would look back historically, it is part of the conditioning that we were raised. When a boy falls down, he's told to get up and brush it off. When a girl falls down, scrapes her knee, it's, oh, are you okay? Where does it hurt? So it's not so much that that's the way we are intrinsically, but we are conditioned. So we all have these conditioning for years, 18, 20, 40 years of conditioning that is not necessarily serving us. But I wouldn't say that that's across the board. I think I will tell you personally that when I find a man that is in touch with his emotions and is able to show his emotions, there is nothing more attractive than that to me. Nothing more attractive and sexy to me.
I agree 100%. I like a little bit of humor and yeah, but I
want a crybaby, but I don't think any man wants a crybaby woman either. So
And I think one of the key things that we heard when we were growing up in regard to little boys, and I've even heard people say it to my sons. I never said it, but they would say big boys don't cry. And then so they want to suppress, they were taught to suppress their emotions. So I have two, I will say two. My middle son is not, but I've raised two emotionally intelligent boys. Yeah, I'm still working on the third. But I think about that in regard to the relationships they're going to have later in their life, because I think that emotional intelligence and communication are so tied. They're so intertwined. So if you have someone who is afraid to express their emotions, that means he's going to have, or whomever, he or she is going to have a communication deficit. And that's so important in any relationship, whether it's a professional relationship or an intimate relationship or even a friendship. Really, communication is really so vital and important. And if you don't know how to do it well, you're going to struggle through all types of throughout your career and in your personal life.
And biological maturity and biological intelligence does not equal emotional maturity or emotional intelligence. So you might be 40 years old biologically, chronologically, but you could still have the emotional intelligence of a 20-year-old. So, don't judge a book by its cover.
Agreed. So we're getting down to the last 3 minutes. We kind of deviated, but I enjoyed every moment of the conversation. I thought we really delved into some aspects and stress and
I would like to get the feedback of everybody watching. You don't necessarily need to put the comments, but if you think about our shows, would you like for us to have a more structured layout to where we're talking about this many minutes, that we make sure we cover X topics? Or do you like the ebb and flow of answering your questions and just kind of going with whatever comes up? I would really like your else, because we want to do whatever is pleasing to you guys and is entertaining.
So Justin's saying Q&A, but that's something to be mindful of. I think we can have a hybrid. We could have a little bit of structure and then have time for questioning at the end, and answer questions in relationship to our topics. And I think I have some exciting news even for you. I'm gonna throw something out there and surprise you, Amber. We are going to have our own Facebook group, the Tips and Tricks. We're gonna have the show's going to have its own Facebook group. I'm working on that, and we're going to be on TikTok. So those are two things.
I'm going to have to get on TikTok now. I have not. That is one social media platform that I have not ventured on yet, although I've been told by numerous people that it's the way to go. So that's good. You're going to have to teach me.
All right. So I learned myself this week. We have the Coast to Coast Network has its own TikTok, and I'm going to make one for every one of our shows, and then we can put up some clips of some of the things that we talk about every week. So great.
Okay. All right, this is awesome. Thank you. That was great news.
So I'm going to let you close it out. Give some closing statements before I close the way I typically do. But I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Well, and what's up? Well, let's do a teaser of next week. Give the listeners a hint on what we're going to talk about next week.
We talked a little bit about next week, which is sleep. So it's what ties everything together. It's what all the drinking water, the eating healthy, the exercising. Sleep is what brings it all home. So like I said, we're biomechanical, feedback mechanisms, and we are no different than a cell phone. We need to be charged every night, and that's where we do it. So it is all about sleep, but I will give you all some a little bit more in-depth information, but just a little bit, couple last tips. So when it comes to detox, guys, don't ever start with the detox. Okay. Start with the breathing, start with the water, start with putting the healthy foods in. We don't want to take stuff out until we're putting in the right ingredients, because we don't want our bodies to go into shock, because it's going to be a very unpleasant experience. Very unpleasant.
All right, great. And then, well, I think next week, one thing that I think that what we talked about tonight, really, we spoke a lot about the issues, and it wasn't really off topic. We spoke about the issues that really pertain to our worth and self-love. And that's really the second component of our show. So I think that we dedicated more time in prior weeks to the physical components of health and nutrition. And yeah, that's exactly right.
Maybe when we finish up the 7 steps, so not next week, but after the next week, maybe let's do one whole show dedicated to just the self-love.
Right.
Because you're right. I don't feel like we've given that as much attention as what we should, because it's at the core of everything, guys. You can, create that perfect body that you love looking at in the mirror, But if you don't have that genuine self-love, then, you know what I'm saying, one little obstacle is going to totally throw you off.
Right. So I'm glad that we spend a lot of time on that tonight, because we have been neglecting that a little bit the last few shows. So great. So I appreciate it. And of course, I always want to thank Amber. You make me feel healthier and enlightened every week. And I appreciate your support and guidance. I love the show, and I love that you're my co-host and partner on it. And then of course I want to thank Chris behind the scenes. We couldn't do any show without him. He's our main man.
We can't even start it without you, buddy.
Exactly. And of course, thanks to the viewers and for all of your comments tonight, Justin and Amy. We certainly appreciate it, and we love having an interactive format. So play us out, Chris, and we'll see everybody next week. And I'll be announcing. I'll put everybody in touch and into the Facebook group and TikTok this week. And so maybe we'll get to correspond and interact with you a little bit more throughout the course of the week. So thanks, everybody.